This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
This episode of Manage Smarter is presented by Sales Fuel Coach, our adaptive sales coaching featuring 5-minute quick coaching personalized to each sales rep. Learn more about Sales Fuel Coach at salesfuel.com. Welcome to the Manage Smarter podcast with hosts C. Lee Smith and Audrey Strong. We're glad you're here for discussions on new ways to manage smarter, hire, develop and retain talent, improve results, and propel team performance to new heights. This is the Manage Smarter podcast.
Well, Lee, let's say you work for a big brand, big corporation, well-known products, global type of situation. You're trying to manage smarter through coronavirus. With that, our guest today is an expert in this. He's going to give us some great tips.
And the other thing too is so much is unknown about what the future holds, because the models have been wrong, the politicians have been wrong, the economists have been wrong so far, and probably will be. And the only thing that's really certain is that we think we know what's going to happen, and then it's going to change, and nobody really knows. So the being agile and having imagination and bringing that to the game, some creativity to the game, is absolutely going to be necessary for you to thrive in the next few months.
That's right. So welcome to Manage Smarter, everyone. We have Ben Gallagher with us today. I'm Audrey Strong. I'm the Vice President of Communications here at Sales Fuel.
And I'm C. Lee Smith, the President and CEO of Sales Fuel.
All right. So Ben Gallagher, what an impressive guy. Co-founder of B&A. It's a creative management consultancy. Clients including Converse, Google, and Beats by Dre. Before he founded B&A, Ben was a journalist at MTV and later was Sir David Frost producer at Al-Jazeera. What an amazing background. Then found himself leading Nike's efforts to make running appealing to young people. That could be a challenge for those of us that have flat feet, but we'll discuss that later, right, Ben?
And you pronate too, yeah.
With COVID-19, he's here to give his tips on how to work and manage smarter through this time. Ben, thanks for coming to the microphones. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Lovely to meet you both.
So one of the things that you wanted to talk about was to talk about building a positive culture at a time when everyone is working from home. You're kind of used to being global in general. So how do you boost up the troops?
Good question. Good question. I think there are lots of different ways that you can boost up the troops, so to speak. And I think it's really about being able to respond to the moment that you're in. So up until obviously recent times, some of the greatest challenges with a global business was how do you unite a disparate workforce, people who aren't spending much time together, people who might work together for years but actually never meet in person. And so for us, we were very often thinking about moments in a given week that we were bringing people together to learn, to share, to collaborate on projects. And we're now in a moment where we are trying to respond to a very fast changing environment and situation. And actually what we've been trying to spend a lot of time doing is trying to understand the people behind our colleagues, the humans that we are. We find ourselves all in our bedrooms or in our lofts or in our kitchens with our kids and our dogs and our budgerigars and all the rest of it running around our homes, and we're suddenly starting to see different part of each other's lives. And so I think for us, what we've been trying to do is focus in on who are we really as people and what is it about us as a collective that can unite us. Where do we have similarities that we didn't think existed? What differences do we have that we think that we can make the most of? What can we learn from each other? So for us at B&A, it's very, very much to do with who really are we as people, and what does that look like as a collective group?
Adversity will do that for you, though. I mean, it really reveals character, and it really shows, who you really are, because it's really revealing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is really revealing. And, I think too often we found with clients of ours that often team members, colleagues leave a large portion of their personality or their home life at the front door of the office, and creating ways for people to feel safe and comfortable and vulnerable enough to be truly honest and open about who they are, and what shapes them, can reap dividends. And that's got to come throughout an organization, from the very top to the very bottom. And we have a saying at BNA that a fish rots from its head, and what we mean by that is that intention to be open, to be empathetic, to be curious of each other has to come from the very top of the organization, and people in teams have to see that happening amongst not only their peers but also their leaders. And the great thing is when you start to discover more about who somebody really is, you're always amazed, you're always inspired, you're always surprised, and you often find there is so much more to your colleagues than you first thought.
If you do it right, a situation like this can be very galvanizing to your team. So what tips could you offer then to managers and to leaders then to make a situation like this be galvanizing to your team?
I think that's a great question. For me, there's a couple of things that you can do. The first one is accept the present reality. This is the situation we're in. There's no sugarcoating here. It's hard. It's super hard. And we can't pretend that it's not. And so I think the first thing is, as a leader, a message to your team is we are going to accept where we are, and we're going to be. We're not going to pretend that we're in a different kind of situation. So that would be the first one. And linked to that, I think, is accept that we don't have lots of answers. We don't, as you said at the beginning of this podcast and your introduction to me, we don't know what next week looks like very often. And I think that the honesty and the vulnerability as a leader to say, I don't have all the answers right now, but this is what I'm doing, or this is what we're collectively doing to try and figure things out, is really, really important, because what you don't want to do is consistently let people down with false hopes. The third thing is, I think, to celebrate the small wins. Sometimes they can be overlooked and on day-to-day business, but focus in on small things that are giving people hope, giving people enjoyment, giving people satisfaction, and at the same time be empathetic and willing to listen and support those who might not be finding it as easy as others, or might be having their down day when others are having an up day, because it's a roller coaster for everybody. And so for me, I think a way of summing all of that up is really to be willing to let go of past behaviors and past habits and models, and in many ways expertise, and to be in the moment and to be intuitive, to be responsive, to be dynamic, and not try to hold on to things for too long. If things need to be let go of them. We're living in this very interesting time where we're all looking for certainty. And the truth is that certainty is really, really hard to find at the moment. And so what we have to do is be able to listen and respond to the micro nuances of how people are behaving in that moment. And then move to the next moment, move to the next day, move to the next week. And not, personally, I don't believe in offering false hope either. I think it's about being grown up and vulnerable enough to say, we don't know the answer right now. So we're going to live here in the moment, and we're going to forge paths, many paths, and see which one takes us in the right direction.
One of the other things that you wanted to offer advice on is, this is cycling and rippling through it, different countries at different times. So in doing global business, if you have some international business or contacts, how do you engage with post-coronavirus countries like China when you're still locked down and they're loosening up, and then the rhythms of this virus? Yeah,
that's a great question. I mean, we do a lot of consumer research work in the Far East and in China in particular, and we have our studio there and our partners who work with us out in Shanghai. And I think that what we've been trying to do is listen very carefully to the journey that they're going on as they emerge out of what seemingly is the kind of the big hit. Now, whether it returns again with such force, we don't yet know. I think we have to listen carefully to what's working and what's not out there, but also be cognizant that every country and every culture is different, and the ways that people behave, the ways that people, what makes people feel comfortable or safe, are also different. So we've been looking for clues from our China partners as to what they're finding works. So, for example, people are in Shanghai have been returning to work, but they don't feel necessarily comfortable attending a research workshop with people they don't know. Mm-hmm. So they're willing to go to an environment where they feel they can trust people, but perhaps if they were asked to go to something where they didn't know the people there, that would make them feel uncomfortable at this stage. So again, I think it's just this principle of listening with nuance and looking for the nuances and not expecting a country that might be further ahead, so to speak, to give us all the answers. We have to be able to then, I think, take elements of that and then merge it with our own cultures and what we know of our own cultures and how they function. So the challenge with that is that in a global system and as a global business, what you're trying to look for is replication and scale. And I think it poses a bigger, more interesting question of what does replication and scale, what's it going to look like in the future? And is it possible in the same way?
Mm-hmm.
I want to get your take on the value of creativity during a time like this. So that unconventional thinker, whether they think out of the box or whatever. There's a person sometimes that doesn't follow the rules, they don't fit in, or something like that. Or we all have a little bit of that, but some more than others. Like, how valuable is that? And at a time like this, and how do you put that to work for you?
Personally, I think it's critical. I think it's probably the most important thing that we could deploy right now is our ability to think creatively and use Sir Ken Robinson, the British educator's definition of creativity, the idea of original ideas that have value. So what we're excited about and interested in is thinking about ways that we can generate original ideas that are going to have an impact and have a value for ourselves or for our clients. And for me, that's about drawing from the broadest possible range of sources and stimulus that we can. How can we step out of the worlds that we've been in and might think that we're experts in and learn from totally different worlds? And what's been interesting, I think, about this period of time so far is that we've suddenly realized that there are people performing what may have been perceived as unimportant jobs or not aspirational jobs, who are in fact key workers, critical workers, garbage collectors, the postal service, these are kind of essential
stock boys at the grocery store.
Right, exactly, And so by reframing how we see the world, and employing some of our softer skills, I think we might be able to look at things with a new light and a new, a fresh pair of eyes. And this is the time for imagination. What we've seen, I think personally, is that the global economic system that we have been operating within has been undermined extremely quickly, and it's shown how fragile it is. And so if there is a moment to start to question fundamentals of how we've been living and operating, now's the moment to do it. And I think that requires bravery, it requires guts, and it requires us to go to places that we might not normally go to look for answers and look for stimulus, and then to try stuff out. Again, it's a great moment to be able to attribute a failure to the fact that we're in this crazy time. So people should feel confident being able to try stuff and not feel like all eyes are on them for the success. We often talk at B&A about the only thing you find in a pigeonhole is pigeon crap. This idea that if you are in a vertical sector and you only ever exist within your sector, your frame of reference and your field of vision is only as broad as that sector or that world, whatever that may be. And so this is the moment to try and step out of that, to fill our minds with new stimulus.
So is that what you find in a rabbit hole then? Yes.
You could say, right?
But I complain all the time. I'm copping to this with Lee. I say to him, I don't have enough time for thinking time. I need my thinking time. And so now I've got a little bit more of that, and I'm going to use it with joy and purpose because I have it now, and I want to bring him new ideas. This is the time to do it.
This is the time to do it. This is the time to be able to connect with people that you might not have been able to connect with in the past. There's never been an easier time to get a few people on a Zoom call or whatever your chosen communications platform is. There are actually very low barriers to entry for accessing new points of view and new stimulus and new ideas. And I think it's such an interesting moment because we're grappling with different with multiple different paces. I think we've got a long arc of what does this really all mean, and that feels quite slow. But then we've got the furious pace of everyday survival, especially if you're running a business or operating in a team, alongside a kind of a rolling pace of day-to-day life as well, and things that are going on around us in our homes, our families, amongst our friends and loved ones. And so I think we're grappling with these different speeds.
And the other thing, the other thing, Ben, is your boss is never going to be more receptive to new ideas than they are right now.
Absolutely.
Because especially if they're admitting that they don't have all the answers, that's your clue right there. Is like, okay, they're going to be receptive to whatever you can bring them.
Yeah, that's right. And if your boss turns around and says they do have the answers, I'd be careful to believe it, because nobody seems to have the answer right now. And actually, I think the most important thing is to go, that's okay. That's okay. Therefore, there's a great opportunity to think about where they might come from.
Hell, we don't even know the questions right now.
Right, exactly. And maybe that's part of the answer. We need to start to ask better questions of ourselves, of the way we live, of how we do business, the world that we live in. And so if anything comes out of this, the idea that we might be asking more fruitful questions in the future would be great.
We got about 3 minutes left. Question: how are you? So when we do reopen, I kind of feel like this environment that we're working in, that's got some benefits that we just talked about, everybody's going to feel like they're being shot out of a cannon. So how are you preparing your teams for go time?
That's a really good question. I think we are thinking about the time that we can spend between now and then to keep people's levels of learning up as high as possible and use this as a great learning opportunity. So for example, we're just designing probably a 2-week internal learning program for everybody in the team to learn new tools and skills that either we're developing at the moment or that they haven't had the chance to skill themselves up on prior to this moment. And then we're also talking to everybody about how they feel about coming out of this and what that might mean for them. So do they feel comfortable traveling if it's possible? Would they be willing to go to different places if it's possible, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's a kind of each person on a case-by-case basis, and we're lucky enough as to the size where we can do that, alongside what are their overall objectives for the year, what are our clients going to need, and then what skills can we teach people in this period of time to prepare them for kind of going back out there, and frankly, more than anything, helping them to feel safe and comfortable that we've got their backs, we've got their best interests at heart, and we're going to continue to only do the very best work with the greatest integrity.
Fantastic. Well, Ben, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. B&AEquals.com is the website if you want to engage with Ben, and Ben Gallagher on LinkedIn as well. Live from England. It's been great having you. And when do you have no idea when you're going to get back to Portland?
I don't know.
You literally are stuck,
right?
I
could answer that question. I'm stuck. I'm stuck right now, as is everybody. So yeah, we'll see. I'll be back today.
Hopefully
the internet's a wonderful thing.
It is.
We'll get to see the Portland Timbers play the Columbus Crew again sometime real soon, and
I'm looking forward to it, and I'm hopeful of the result already.
I love it.
Don't be too hopeful.
On that note, I'm out of here.
Great tips,
right,
Ben. Thank you
very much. Lovely to meet you. Cheers. Bye.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and recommend on iTunes, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more great information at salesfuel.com.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.